Hollywood is full of glitz and glamour on the outside, but behind the cameras, some stars took paths so dark they ended up trading red carpets for cold prison cells. These aren't just minor scandals or overnight arrests. These are full-blown stories of fame turned into infamy. From household names you grew up watching on screen to unexpected faces that shocked the world, today we're diving into 19 actors whose careers have completely collapsed. Because right now, they're not walking the Hollywood Walk of Fame, they're rotting behind bars. Danny Masterson. This year, the That 70s Show star made headlines not for his comedy, but for his crimes. Masterson was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison after being found guilty of sexually assaulting 2 women at his Hollywood Hills home between 2001 and 2003. The verdict came just 4 months after his retrial, where a Los Angeles jury convicted him on 2 of 3 counts. All 3 women, one of them his former girlfriend, were tied to the Church of Scientology, the same church Masterson belonged to. While the judge clarified that the church itself was not on trial, the victims testified that its officials pressured them to stay silent. Masterson, who once enjoyed fame as a sitcom star, refused to testify in both trials, maintaining through his lawyers that he was innocent. The women were praised for their courage in court. Jane Doe No. 1 called him a true coward and a heartless monster, while Jane Doe No. 3 revealed she suffers from PTSD. Before delivering the sentence, Judge Charlene Olmedo looked Masterson in the eye and said, "You are not the victim here." Still, Masterson's legal team insists the fight isn't over. Attorney Sean Hawley vowed to appeal, saying, "Sometimes the system gets it wrong. Mr. Masterson did not commit these crimes, and we're confident the convictions will be overturned." For now, however, Masterson will not be eligible for parole until he's served at least 25.5 years. And this is only the beginning. Stick around, because later we'll uncover the shocking downfall of a Sharknado star now rotting in prison, and the disgraceful reason why. If you thought Masterson's story was wild, wait until you hear what's next. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss another jaw-dropping story from Hollywood's dark side. Skyler Julius Deleon, born John Julius Jacobson Jr., once brushed against fame with a role in the hit kids show Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. His career could have taken off, but instead, it collapsed under the weight of greed, crime, and murder. After a string of appearances in children's programs, Deleon tried to change course by enlisting in the U.S. Navy at just 20 years old. That attempt at discipline ended quickly. He was discharged for going AWOL for 15 days. By 2002, he was married with 2 children, but mounting financial struggles pushed him and his wife toward darker choices. At first, the couple targeted small businesses, dabbling in petty theft. But by 2004, their ambitions turned deadly. They lured a yacht-owning couple with the promise of a test run in Newport Beach Harbor. Once at sea, Deleon, his wife, and 3 accomplices attacked. They forced the owners to sign over the boat, bound their hands and feet, and then shoved them overboard into the cold Pacific, never to be seen again. 4 years, the crime remained a haunting mystery, until one accomplice finally confessed, unraveling the shocking plot. Prosecutors secured a death sentence for Deleon, though California's moratorium on executions means he will likely spend his life on death row. His wife received life without parole. In prison, Deleon underwent a gender transition and now lives as Skyler Preciosa Deleon, a chilling reminder of how a child actor's fleeting fame spiraled into one of California's most notorious crimes. Michael Andrew Jace, once best known for playing a police officer on the hit TV series The Shield, is now remembered for a far darker role in real life. Today, he sits behind bars, serving a 40-year prison sentence for the cold-blooded murder of his wife, April Jace. On May 19, 2014, what began as a seemingly ordinary evening ended in tragedy. When April returned home to their Los Angeles residence, Jace confronted her, consumed by jealousy and rage over her desire for a divorce. Convinced she was being unfaithful, he fatally shot her. Moments later, in a chilling twist, he called emergency services himself to report the crime. But this violent act didn't come out of nowhere. Court records later revealed Jace's disturbing history of domestic abuse, stretching back to the late 1990s. A sworn statement from a friend of his first wife described brutal incidents of physical assault as early as 1997. During a 2005 custody battle with his ex, Jennifer Bitterman, the pattern of violence became even clearer. After that marriage collapsed, Jace wed April in 2003. Yet their union was plagued by financial turmoil. By 2011 he had declared Chapter 13 bankruptcy, his Hollywood paychecks long gone. Ironically, while his acting career often cast him as heroes, cops, soldiers, even Michael Jordan in the 1999 TV movie Michael Jordan, an American hero, his private life told a much darker story. Between 2009 and 2012, he appeared in Southland, another police drama based in Los Angeles. But by 2016, the actor who once played protectors of the law was convicted as a murderer. Now incarcerated at the California State Prison in Corcoran, Jace serves as a haunting reminder that the characters actors play on screen can hide the most tragic and violent truths off it. Shannon Richardson may have seemed like just another struggling actress, remembered only for bit parts in hit CW shows like The Vampire Diaries and The Walking Dead. But behind the screen credits was a shocking story that gripped the nation. Who could have imagined that a mother of 6 would become entangled in one of the most bizarre and dangerous federal crimes of the decade? According to prosecutors, Richardson ordered the ingredients for ricin online, then manufactured the deadly toxin herself. She mailed 3 poisoned letters, one to President Barack Obama, another to New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and a third to Mark Glaze, then director of Mayors Against Illegal Guns. The messages inside were chilling. To the president, she warned, "What's in this letter is nothing compared to what I've got in store for you." Bloomberg's letter threatened to shoot anyone who dared to confiscate her guns. What made the case even stranger was Richardson's next move. She marched into a police station and tried to frame her estranged husband, claiming he had typed the letters and forced her to mail them. But investigators quickly uncovered the truth. He was at work at the time and nowhere near the evidence. In court, Richardson wept, insisting she never meant to hurt anyone. "I'm not a bad person," she pleaded. "I don't have it in me to harm anyone." She begged the judge for mercy, saying the pain of being separated from her children was punishment enough. But the court was unmoved. Following a plea deal, she was sentenced to the maximum, 18 years in federal prison, and ordered to pay nearly $367,000 in restitution. Today, Shannon Richardson is serving her sentence in a federal facility in Fort Worth, Texas. Her release date is set for November 18, 2028, a grim reminder of how a once aspiring actress's life spiraled into a dark chapter of American crime. Josh Duggar, once a reality TV star, fell from grace in one of the most disturbing scandals in recent memory. In April 2021, he was arrested after investigators traced explicit images and videos of child torture and abuse back to his computer. The files were downloaded between May 14 and 16, 2019, onto a device inside a car dealership Duggar owned. That discovery triggered a federal raid on wholesale motor cars later that year. One veteran FBI agent, hardened by years of investigating child exploitation, said the material ranked among the top 5 worst of the worst he had ever seen. Duggar pleaded not guilty to charges of receiving and possessing child sexual abuse material, with his lawyers suggesting a hacker or former employee may have been responsible. But the jury wasn't convinced. In December 2021, he was sentenced to over 12 years in prison. His projected release, originally set for August 12, 2032, has already been pushed back multiple times for violations, including being caught with a smuggled cell phone, first by 10 days, then by another 6 weeks, now extending into October 2032. This wasn't Duggar's first brush with scandal. Back in 2015, TLC canceled 19 Kids and Counting after shocking revelations surfaced. When he was 14 and 15, Duggar had inappropriately touched 4 of his sisters and a babysitter between 2002 and 2003. Police had first looked into the allegations in 2006 after a family friend tipped them off, but no charges were filed because the statute of limitations had already expired. William Hayden, once a familiar face on the Discovery Channel's hit show Sons of Guns, saw his world collapse in disgrace. The series ran from 2011 to 2014, but it was abruptly cancelled after Hayden's shocking arrest on charges of sexual assault and aggravated incest. What followed was a courtroom saga that exposed the horrifying reality behind his TV persona. In East Baton Rouge Parish, prosecutors revealed that Hayden had preyed on two young girls, one in the early 1990s and another in 2013 and 2014. The jury took barely over an hour to convict him, sentencing the former Gunsmith star to 3 life terms plus an additional 40 years. There would be no probation, no parole, and no second chance. The testimonies were chilling. Multiple women came forward, recounting how Hayden had assaulted them. Even his own daughter stepped into the spotlight, bravely revealing that one night he came home drunk and tried to force himself on her, though she fought him off. While Hayden denied every accusation, the jury wasn't convinced. Prosecutor Sonia Cardia-Porter described him as a master manipulator, a man who delivered lies to the jury with a rehearsed performance. But this time, the mask didn't hold. Justice was swift, and Hayden's fall from television celebrity to convicted predator was complete. He had rehearsed the killing multiple times, even recording himself with a GoPro as he crept up behind her with a gun. Afterward, he draped her body with a sheet, lit candles around her, and placed a rosary on the piano she loved to play. Then, in a chilling turn, he went out to buy marijuana and beer, spending the night watching Netflix as though nothing had happened. But Grantham's dark spiral didn't stop there. He filled his car with guns, ammunition, and a map to the residence of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, plotting an assassination. When that plan unraveled, he considered carrying out a mass shooting at Vancouver's Lions Gate Bridge or at his university. Thankfully, he abandoned both ideas and ultimately turned himself into police. By then, his sister Lisa had already discovered their mother's body. Psychiatric evaluations determined that Grantham was mentally competent but struggling with major depressive disorder and cannabis use disorder at the time of the crime. In 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 14 years. During sentencing, his attorney, Chris Johnson, told the court that Grantham expressed deep remorse and vowed to dedicate the rest of his life to rehabilitation and helping others. Now behind bars, the one-time rising star is receiving psychiatric treatment and counseling. Authorities are still deciding where he will serve the remainder of his sentence, but one thing is certain: the boy who once dreamed of Hollywood glory is now remembered for one of Canada's most shocking crimes. Amy Locane. Back in 2010, actress Amy Locane, best known for her role on Melrose Place and starring alongside Johnny Depp in Crybaby, was involved in a tragic drunk driving crash in Montgomery. Around 9 p.m. on June 27, New York attorney Fred Seaman was driving with his wife, Helen, when Locane, speeding nearly 20 miles over the limit, slammed into their car. Helen was killed instantly, and Fred suffered devastating injuries. Toxicology reports later showed Locane's blood alcohol level was 0.23%, almost 3 times the legal limit. With numbers like that, there was little hope for leniency. Still, her initial 3-year state prison sentence for vehicular homicide and assault by auto was widely criticized as far too light. Over the years, the case took a bizarre and painful path. After serving part of her sentence and being released on parole in 2015, Locane thought she had closed that chapter. But the courts had other plans. In February 2019, Judge Kevin Shanahan re-sentenced her to 5 years. Then, in 2020, Superior Court Judge Angela Borkowski sent her back yet again, this time for 8 more years, with a mandatory minimum of nearly 7. From behind bars at Edna Mahan Correctional Facility, Locane told The Guardian journalist Simon Hattonstone, "I walk around in a daze. It's messing with my mind. I never violated any rules, I never re-offended. To be thrown back in here feels cruel, I feel like I'm being made an example of." Her attorney, James Ronka, echoed the confusion. "I just can't comprehend how, 5 years later, they can re-incarcerate her like this." Joe's son may have made audiences laugh in comedies, most memorably as Random Task, the odd-job parody in Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, but his real life played out more like a horror movie than a spoof. A former MMA fighter who failed to make it in professional wrestling, Sun turned to acting, landing roles in action flicks like Joshua Tree, 1993, with Dolph Lundgren and Blood Fist v. Human Target, 1994. On paper, it looked like he had a shot at Hollywood success. But that dream died in the shadows of crimes so monstrous, they guaranteed he'd never walk free again. In 2008, Sun was sentenced to 60 days in jail for vandalism, a minor charge that should have been the end of it. But fate had other plans. As part of his sentence, he was required to give a DNA sample. That single swab cracked open a cold case from the 1990s, linking him to a horrific kidnapping and brutal assault. Though prosecutors originally pushed for 275 years behind bars, statute of limitation laws narrowed it down to a single felony count of torture, still enough to seal his fate with a life sentence. You'd think that would be the last chapter of his story. But in 2011, only a month into serving time at Wasco State Prison in California, Sun's name resurfaced in headlines. This time, he was accused of murdering his cellmate, a convicted sex offender named Michael Thomas Graham. The once comedic Random Task was now living out a script drenched in violence, serving 34 years to life. But he's become a TV personality unlike any other. The former zookeeper shot to fame in Netflix's Tiger King, a series that turned him and his longtime rival Carole Baskin into household names during the global frenzy of 2020. But behind the wild hair, flashy clothes, and larger-than-life persona lies a man serving hard time. Born Joseph Maldonado Passage, Joe Exotic was sentenced in 2020 to 22 years in prison for attempting to hire two men to kill animal welfare activist Carole Baskin. A federal appeals court later ruled his two murder-for-hire convictions should be treated as one, leading to a resentencing. Supporters filled the courtroom, some in animal print masks and Free Joe Exotic t-shirts, only to watch his sentence reduced by just a single year, down to 21. Still, Exotic hasn't given up. His legal team is pushing for an appeal and a new trial. Pleading with the judge, he said, "Please don't let me die in prison waiting for a chance to be free." For now, though, the flamboyant Tiger King remains caged, fighting to claw his way back into the spotlight, and maybe, one day, to freedom. Jen Shah, once a glamorous star of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, has traded her designer gowns and luxury lifestyle for a prison uniform. She's now serving a 6.5-year sentence after pleading guilty to masterminding a nationwide telemarketing scam that stole tens of millions from vulnerable elderly victims. Known for flaunting a Kardashian-like level of wealth on reality TV, Shah admitted in court that her so-called business opportunities were nothing but smoke and mirrors. Alongside her co-conspirators, she specifically targeted older individuals and those unfamiliar with technology, tricking them into paying for services that didn't even exist. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss condemned the scheme as pure greed, calling it a calculated plan to bleed victims of their life savings. Standing before the judge in New York, Shah broke down, confessing, "I knew it was wrong and many people were harmed. I am so sorry." She acknowledged collaborating with others in the fraud and admitted that more than 10 of the victims were over 55 years old. Now, the fallen reality star faces 78 months in a Texas prison. On top of that, she must forfeit $6.5 million and pay up to $9.5 million in restitution. From red carpets to prison bars, Jen Shah's dramatic downfall is a cautionary tale of greed, deception, and shattered trust. Todd and Julie Chrisley, once the glamorous faces of Chrisley Knows Best on USA Network, are now living a far different reality behind prison walls. Their fall from television royalty to convicted felons reads like a Hollywood drama gone wrong. In 2019, the couple was accused of conspiracy to commit bank fraud, tax evasion, and defrauding the United States. Julie faced even more heat, charged with wire fraud and obstruction of justice after allegedly submitting fake credit reports and bank statements to secure loans and even rental homes they later failed to pay for. Despite their insistence that they were innocent, Todd boldly declared, "We have nothing to hide and nothing to be ashamed of." The courts saw otherwise. By June 2022, both were sentenced. Todd with 12 years at the federal prison camp in Pensacola, Florida, and Julie with 7 years at the Federal Medical Center in Lexington, Kentucky. Each also faced 16 months of probation. But the story didn't end there. Their sentences were later reduced. Todd now expected to serve 10 years, and Julie down to 5. Even so, the punishment was considered steep by some, with their attorney calling the penalties exorbitant. Ironically, both have been described as model inmates, a shocking twist for the reality stars once known for flaunting luxury, wealth, and family drama on screen. Drechsel wasn't just another competitor, he was a champion. After appearances on shows like Japan's Sasuke, he rose to fame in the US, winning American Ninja Warrior Season 11 and earning the nickname, the real-life ninja. But his legacy came crashing down in one of the most disturbing scandals to ever hit the show. An FBI investigation uncovered that between 2015 and 2016, Drechsel engaged in a series of shocking crimes involving a 14-year-old girl he had met at a fan event. Federal prosecutors revealed that he traveled to New Jersey with the intent of having illicit relations with her, coerced her into visiting him in Connecticut, pressured her into creating explicit images, and maintained inappropriate online communication with her. Drechsel did not deny the encounters but claimed he hadn't known her true age. The courts were not persuaded. He was charged with manufacturing child pornography, enticing a minor to travel for sexual purposes, and using interstate commerce to lure a child into illegal conduct. Bail was denied multiple times, and eventually, Drechsel pleaded guilty to 2 felonies. His sentencing was scheduled for October 24th in Camden, New Jersey. If the judge orders his prison terms to run consecutively, Drechsel could spend 60 years behind bars, down from the possibility of life imprisonment, but still enough to ensure that the once celebrated champion may never walk free again. Harvey Weinstein, who hasn't heard of the scandal that shook Hollywood to its core? Once a powerful producer, Weinstein now faces the grim reality that he may spend the rest of his life behind bars. At 70 years old, he begged the court for mercy. "Please don't sentence me to life in prison. I don't deserve it." But his pleas fell flat. Instead, he was hit with another 16-year sentence in Los Angeles, on top of the 23 years he's already serving in New York for sexual misconduct. Together, those sentences all but guarantee he will live and die behind prison walls. During sentencing, Weinstein tried to cast doubt on the case, calling it a setup filled with loopholes, and even accusing one of his accusers of being able to turn the tears on. But his words rang hollow. The world has not forgotten the more than 80 women who came forward with allegations of abuse, assault, and harassment, testimonies that ignited the global #MeToo movement and shattered Hollywood's silence on its casting couch culture. Weinstein was first convicted in New York in 2020, then transferred to a Los Angeles prison in 2021. His legal team insists the encounters were consensual, arguing that women believed intimacy with him would boost their careers. Yet for many, his downfall represents more than just one man's crimes. It marks a turning point in the fight against abuse by powerful men in the entertainment industry. Colin Rashad Walker, rapper, actor, and now a cautionary tale. Once a rising star who appeared in the 2018 remake of Superfly and shared the screen with Halle Berry and Daniel Craig in Kings, 2017. Walker's career came crashing down in 2018 when he was arrested on charges of sexually assaulting 4 aspiring models. Prosecutors said he lured his victims with promises of lucrative contracts and glamorous photo shoots, offers that turned out to be nothing more than a sinister trap. At first, he was jailed on multi-million-dollar bail, then briefly released, only to be thrown back behind bars in 2019 when 6 more women, including minors, came forward with harrowing testimony. The revelations were damning, and by the end of the trial, Walker was sentenced to 50 years to life in state prison. Throughout the proceedings, Walker's defense fought hard, insisting he was innocent and that the trial was unfair. His lawyer, Andrew Flyer, even argued that the women weren't forced, but had made their own choices, that this was nothing more than payback against Walker. But the jury saw it differently, and what could have been a promising Hollywood career ended with a life sentence and a legacy defined by scandal. Zack Avery, a little-known actor with credits in low-budget films like Last Moment of Clarity and The White Crow, lived a double life more gripping than anything he ever played on screen. Behind the scenes, he was the mastermind of a massive Ponzi scheme that raked in at least $650 million from over 20,000 unsuspecting investors. But instead of red carpets, his future now lies behind bars, 20 years in federal prison. So how did he pull it off? Prosecutors say that between 2014 and 2019, Avery lured investors with promises of lucrative film licensing deals through his company, One Inmem Capital LLC. He claimed the money would be used to buy distribution rights for films supposedly headed to streaming giants like Netflix and HBO. In reality, those deals never existed. Avery used new funds to pay off earlier investors and splurged on luxuries like a $6 million home. The facade finally collapsed in April, when Avery was arrested in Los Angeles. By October, he pleaded guilty to securities fraud. The court not only handed him a 20-year sentence but also ordered him to repay more than $230 million to his victims. The SEC later revealed that neither Avery nor his company ever had legitimate business with Netflix or HBO. Horowitz promised sky-high returns and made them sound believable by dropping the names of two major entertainment companies and fabricating documents, said Michelle Wine-Lane, director of the SEC's Los Angeles office. Regulators froze his remaining assets in an emergency move, one final attempt to salvage what was left for investors. Jonathan Majors may not be behind bars yet, but leaving him off this list would be impossible given the firestorm surrounding his ongoing trial. After months of delays, the actor is set to appear in court on November 29 to face charges stemming from a violent altercation with his girlfriend, Grace Jabari, in Manhattan on March 25. According to reports, Majors allegedly put his hands around her neck during the dispute. Police arrested him that same day on multiple charges, including strangulation, though that particular charge has since been dropped. He now faces misdemeanor counts of assault, aggravated harassment, attempted assault, and harassment. Jabari was granted a temporary restraining order, cutting off all contact between them. From the beginning, Majors' defense team has mounted a high-profile case, painting him as both a victim of racism and of abuse himself, while accusing prosecutors of withholding evidence. His lawyer, Priya Chaudhry, insisted he was completely innocent, claiming the arrest only happened because Jabari was having an emotional crisis that landed her in the hospital. But as the case drags on, damaging stories have surfaced. Rolling Stone cited more than a dozen sources who claim Majors has a long history of emotional abuse, including an incident where he allegedly strangled an ex-partner. Reports also suggest troubling behavior during his Yale drama school days and on professional sets. The fallout has already been devastating. Majors has been dropped by his talent agency, Entertainment 360, and his PR firm. If convicted, he faces up to a year in prison, not to mention the irreversible blow to a once soaring career. How it all plays out is anyone's guess, but one thing's certain, the spotlight isn't leaving Jonathan Majors anytime soon. Jared Fogle. Once hailed as a national icon, Jared Fogle was known as the Subway Guy, starring in more than 300 commercials that celebrated his jaw-dropping 200-pound weight loss thanks to the Subway diet. To many, he was more than just a spokesperson, he was a symbol of inspiration. But behind the polished smile and wholesome image, a dark truth was waiting to explode. In 2015, everything came crashing down. Russell Taylor, the director of Fogle's own nonprofit, the Jared Foundation, was arrested for possessing child pornography. That shocking arrest pulled back the curtain on Fogle himself. Just months later, federal agents raided his home, and what they uncovered stunned the nation. Investigators discovered that Fogle had been exchanging those same vile images and videos with Taylor. By November 2015, the man once trusted in America's living rooms was sentenced to 15 years and 8 months in prison. On top of that, he was ordered to pay $1.4 million in restitution, $100,000 to each of his 14 victims. Today, Jared Fogle remains behind bars at a federal correctional institution, with no chance of parole until at least March 24, 2029. And when he is released, his name will forever carry the label of sex offender, forcing him to undergo mandatory treatment for sexual disorders. Thanks for watching Exposed Hollywood. Don't miss our next video, where we reveal 19 celebrities currently rotting in prison. Click now, you won't believe who made the list.